Hey everybody, it's Lisa with Quilting in the Valley. I'm at home today, but we're going to make Mr. Snowman today. So I'm going to show you how to do this. Okay, so I am using soft and stable for this one because this one is going to be a wall hanging and I want it to have some body. And I am using one of these. I got this compass from Staples. I think I paid $5 for it. And all you do is measure from here to here, half the width of the circle that you'd like to draw. So we're going to draw 3 circles on our soft and stable. It comes with, by the way, there's a little lead here on the tip here. You're going to mark with this little lead. I have a 12-inch circle. Then I've made a 10-inch circle. And my last circle that I'm going to make, this one, is measured out to be an 8-inch circle. So you just poke the pointy part in and then draw around with the lead. Okay, we're going to go stitch on this now. Okay, so for each of the 3 circles that you have, what you're going to do is put your backing fabric down. So I have 1/3 of a yard of my backing fabric. Actually, I think I have 5/8, or excuse me, 3/8, because that gave me an inch over. So you need 1/3 of a yard of your backing fabric. I chose the same backing fabric that I am using for my hat. That way I can use that whole 3/8 of a yard piece up. I have the wrong foot on my machine. Okay, the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to stitch down your backing fabric to the soft and stable. Just stitch on your drawn line. And the reason you're doing this is because we're going to strip piece on top, and you need to have a guideline for when you cut this out. So this will make our cutting guideline after we've pieced the top. So this is a quilt as you go project. And he is pretty cute. So I have 5 different fabrics that I'm going to piece onto the front of my snowman. I used a soft dove gray because I don't want him to look dirty. So I'm going to take my 5 2-inch strips. These are all 2-inch strips of fabric. And one after the other, I am going to just strip piece this onto the top of my soft and stable. So again, I have 3/8 of a yard of backing fabric. And my dog is choking over there. Goodness gracious. Sorry about that. For crying out loud. He needs to go get a drink. Okay. Kind of press that out, finger press that out, and then add another strip. And I'm just sewing a regular 1/4-inch seam. And again, these are 2-inch strips of fabric. Okay, and I'm putting my last strip on this particular piece. Finger press that out. Okay, now I'm going to flip the whole thing upside down. And I'm now going to sew on my original stitch line, the circle going all the way around. So I'm going to stitch that again, and that secures all of my top pieces down. That's sewn all the way around, and now I'm going to get my scissors and I'm going to come around here and I'm going to cut about 1/8 of an inch away from that stitch line all the way around. I think the lighting is probably not the absolute best. But hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Okay. So that is my 12-inch circle. I'm going to go press that real well. And he's finished on front and back. I've done the quilt as you go. And now I have to do the exact same thing with the 10-inch and the 8-inch circle. Okay, so now I've finished all three. So I have my 12-inch, my 10-inch, and my 8-inch circles. And now I have cut 2 1/4 inch binding. I've got 3 strips of it, and I'm going to go ahead and bind these. I did not do bias binding. You could, but I did not. And I was just looking, I'm at home today instead of at the shop, and I don't have my stitch in the ditch foot, so I'm gonna have to put this binding on without the benefit of my stitch in the ditch foot. So I guess we'll see how well that works. I sew so much at the shop that I find I don't sew much at home anymore. So knowing where things even are here is a challenge. And I got my movie going in the background. Can't do that at the shop. But I'm playing a little Pride and Prejudice today. While I'm at home. Okay, I'm not going to join this. I'm just going to overlap it, so just slide that up in there. Okay, I'm gonna go press that. I will be right back. All right, here we go, the moment of truth. I'm gonna try to stitch this on right in the ditch there without my stitch in the ditch foot. Guess we'll see how that works out. So I've turned my binding around to the back, am just stitching in the seam line. All the way around. Well, I guess it's not going badly. I still would prefer to have my stitch in the ditch foot. And obviously I could have pinned all of this, but I am just not a big pinner, so. Okay. All right, well, I made it around without my stitch in the ditch foot, so, the moment of truth will be when I turn it over. And I actually did catch it all. All right there. So we're going to do that to all 3 of the pieces. So now I'm going to put the binding on the 10-inch circle and the 8-inch circle, and then I'll be back. All right, so I've got the binding on all 3 pieces, and now I need to attach him together. So, and I want my strips to kind of go randomly, so I'm just going to kind of overlap it to where it looks kind of proportional. And I am offsetting my strips so that they go in random different directions. So I think that looks pretty good to me. And maybe I'll set his head forward a little bit. And once I figure out where I want everything, I'm going to come in here and just stitch in the ditch again in my binding from before. So now I'm stitching the second piece onto the top of the first piece. Like so. Ooh, this one's going to be shorter and fatter than my first one, but that's okay. And now I'm going to come in here and do his head. All right, so there's my snowman body. He is put together, and now we are going to go back to the cutting table and we're going to cut out the soft and stable to make his hat. All right, we're going to make his hat, and we are going to straighten this off a little bit. We're going to make a 4.5 inch tall by 6.5 inch wide square to start with. All right. And then the brim is 1.5 inches tall and it's an inch in. So I'm going to come in an inch in. On both sides, so there's my brim there. And I'm going to come in an inch in. And up there. Okay, so that is my hat. Whoops. That's wrong. That should be an inch and a half. Inch and a half. Sorry about that. Inch and a half inch tall. So there's my brim. And here's my hat. Okay. So let's go sew that. All right, so I have my leftover fabric from my backing. This is my backing fabric, which is also going to be my hat fabric. And just like we did with the circles, I'm going to stitch the outline of my hat. You hear my dogs running behind me? They do not understand what Mama is doing. Okay, so I've got my stitch line on there. Now I'm just going to wrap this fabric around from the back so that I have both sides covered. I'm going to flip it over, and now I'm going to stitch on my previous stitch line. To secure it all the way around. Now, I'm not binding this, so I'm going to have exposed, soft and stable. On the sides. If you are bothered by having exposed, soft and stable on the sides, then you could, of course, bind it. But I didn't see the need to do that. Thought it looked kind of cute. That's the way it was. Okay, when we get that done, then we're going to trim it out. Doing that same thing, I'm just going real close to that stitch line. I'm careful I'm not cutting into the stitch line, I'm just going real close to it. Now, my original one of these that I made just with batting. And it's cute if you're going to use it as a table topper, but I wanted a little more body to this one. So this one I'm making with soft and stable. Now, of course, you can see there's the soft and stable exposed on the edges. That doesn't bother me. I don't care. If it bothers you, you could, of course, bind it. On my original one, let me get my original one. Okay, on the original one, I stitched through his hat, just made some lines across it. I think that just adds a little bit to it. I don't know. You wouldn't have to do that if you don't want to, but I'm going to do that to this. Probably not as many. So I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of stitch lines. Just makes a little dimension to it, that's all. Not a big deal. You don't have to do this part if you don't want to. I think it's kind of fun. Okay, and that gets my hat, and I can trim off my threads so those aren't on there. And then I can put his hat on. So I need to decide if I want him facing this way or that way. I think he's going to face that way. All right, so now I just am going to stitch this on across two of those stitch lines I just did. So I'm going to stitch across here. And then I'm going to come up here, let's see. I'll stitch across this one too, and that just secures it so his hat doesn't flop around on him. All right, so he's got his hat. And he's secured. So we got this going on now. Now we've got to make his face. And that is very simple. It is just a triangle and two circles for his eye. And then for his buttons, I made squares and then cut the corners off so they would look like coal. So I am using Steam-A-Seam Light 2 for my fusible. And I always keep all of my leftover pieces of Steam-A-Seam. So I have plenty of small pieces of Steam-A-Seam that I can use for this. And all I'm going to do is draw a nice sized triangle. So you can see I've got enough here that I can make my triangle. So I'm going to go there. Okay, that's going to be my nose, and that's close enough to what I got there. It's just a triangle. So just draw yourself a triangle. And that'll be for the orange fabric, which I think I left in the other room. Okay, so I put my Steam-A-Seam on here, and I just need to cut that out. So there's my nose. And if you don't like it, if you think his nose is too big, which I just decided, you can always trim it down. And then I need to make my 2 eyes. So I'm just going to draw a circle and a circle. And put that on my black fabric. Here's my eyes. And I'll take my last bit of steam here and I'm going to make my 3 squares for my coal buttons. And I'll put that on the black. And now all I have to do is cut those out. Now I am going to use these scissors to do that with. Actually, I'm going to fuse that. I'm going to fuse that. I'll be right back. Okay, I am using the Fiskars Microtip scissors. These are the titanium ones. And the reason that these are great is because they're micro-serrated, they're short blades, and they have this spring in there that just makes it easier for you to make nice, smooth cuts. So they kind of grip that fabric, so I'm not going to have pointy eyeballs. Who wants pointy eyeballs? I don't want pointy eyeballs. Okay, there's one eye. I don't know how many pair of those scissors I've got, but a lot. All right, and then on your squares for the coal, you can just cut those out as the squares. And then what you're going to do is just cut the corners off. Just chop the corners off. And that gives you your pieces of coal. Like so. Okay, and then we're going to put all of this on our snowman and put it in a way that makes you happy. Let's see, he can be looking down. Oh, I kind of like him looking down. He's kind of fun looking down. I might do like that, or I might make his nose a little skinnier. Get a bigger pair of scissors for this. He's got kind of a big nose. There, I like that a little better. All right, so I could make him cross-eyed. Either way. So you're just gonna take the backing off, the paper backing off of the steam and stick it where you want it. Do the same with the eyes. Take the steam off. And until you fuse it, it's not permanent. So if you don't like where you put everything, I could move that back here, move this over here, I could turn his nose up instead of down. I can just play with that until I get it the way I like it. And then when I go to fuse it, I will actually use steam. Hence the name, Steam-A-Seam, and that makes it permanent. It's not going anywhere. So you can stitch this down, or you could not stitch it down. I chose not to. I actually did stitch the nose. Uh-oh. Somebody's walking down the street, heaven forbid. Okay, and I kind of put his buttons kind of in a little curve. And it just emphasizes that he's got a big belly. Like so. I like it better in. Yeah, there's somebody walking their dog outside. So just play with it until you get it where you like it. Like so. Okay, then I'm going to go fuse it down. And it's done. So this is my first snowman. His head is only a 6-inch circle, and that's pretty small. It looked like he kind of had a pinhead. So when I made the second one, this is an 8-inch circle. So I've got a 10, 12. Okay, sorry, we had to get situated over there. Anyway, the first one I made had the 6-inch for the top, and again, I kind of thought he looked like he had a pinhead. So this one is a 12-inch, a 10-inch, and a 6-inch. This one is a 12-inch, a 10-inch, and an 8-inch. You could split the difference and do a 7-inch if you wanted to for the top. I don't know. I kind of like him this way. I think he's kind of, let's see if we can get him in here. I think he's kind of cool. Like this. And I'll show you the first one. So that's the first one. He kind of had a little bit of a pinhead going on there. Either way you like it. If you like him to have a bigger head or a smaller head, do what you will. But that's it. And then you got yourself, with the soft and stable in here, this is pretty firm. With the batting in here, it's not as stiff, it's not as firm, but it would be fine for a tabletopper. And then this one is going to be fine to hang. If you wanted to put him on a door, he would have enough body you could hang him on the door. Okay. We got him made. You could make the one to be a girl, Mr. and Mrs. Snowman. Anyway, make yourself a snowman. It's easy. We'll see you next time.